So in this video, I want to talk about the spanning tree features. It's called PortFast. Let's explore what it is, how to use it, and what are the benefits of it. So PortFast is designed for what they call an edge ports. Edge ports is something that you use to connect to end devices like a PC, a server, or a printer. Right? What it is allow you to skip the standard spanning tree listening and learning phases, which, if you remember, that's a total of 30 seconds for an interface to transition from blocking to forwarding mode, right? Forwarding state. So with PortFast enabled on the interface, you skip that 30 seconds. It's instantly come up and be able to forward traffic immediately. So the other benefit of PortFast is you have the topology chain suppressions. So normally in a spanning tree, all the interfaces on the switch will participate in spanning tree. Right? When that interface coming up, it will start a spanning tree. Right? So with PortFast enabled on the interface, it will suppress that topology change, right? And you want to use that where the interface is going to connect to a PC, for example. So PortFast will allow the interface not only skip the 30 seconds, but also won't cause any topologies reconversions when that interface is up or down. A PC connecting to that interface will be shut down and turned back on very often. So you want the spanning tree suppressions or topology chain suppressions on that interface. All right, so how do you use it? What's the best way to configure it? So we look at switch 2 here, right? So in this lab, I have a switch 2 with interface E01 connecting to a PC and E10 connected to another PC. Again, once I identified the interfaces that connect to an end device, I can do an interface configuration, particularly on that interface. For example, this is interface E01, and then spanning tree PortFast. Okay, so that's now enable PortFast on that interface. If I do the same here, 0. Okay. So now the two interfaces here on switch 2 are PortFast enabled. I could do a global configuration mode or spanning tree. Now this command will basically look at any interface that in the access mode and then add PortFast features to it. So there is a warning when you configure PortFast. Let me look at the interface. For example, that is all right. So this warning here is that it basically making sure that when you enable PortFast, it has to be an access port that connects to, again, an end device that is not either a hub or switches, right? So that is a warning because there might be a temporary loops issue if you do a PortFast configure interface that connecting to another switch, because remember it bypassed that span and tree operation on that interface, so it wouldn't be good. So anyway, that's pretty much about the benefits of using PortFast here. The two main benefit is the topology, span and tree topology change suppressions, and then allow the bypass of the 30-second span and tree phase, listening and learning phase. Okay, now that we understand what PortFast is being used for, let's talk about the features that typically been configured with PortFast enable interface. So the first one we want to talk about the BDPU filter features here. So the ideas behind PBDU filter is that it suppresses the PBU on the port that you enable PortFast on. So remember, PDU is basically the message communications between the switches, right? So you can see if we know that the PortFast enable interface is going to connect to a PC, which not supposed to send any PBDU messages on that from the PC. So you expect that it's not going to do any span and tree operations between the PC and that interface, right? That PortFast enable interface. So the idea is that when you put PBDU filter on PortFast enable interface, it is a safeguard when there, let's say somebody accidentally configure or connected that interface, that PortFast enable interface, to a switch instead of a PC. Now, when this happens, you're gonna have PBDU, right, from that switch sending to the switch with the PortFast enable interface. You want to safeguard this by doing the global configuration on PBDU. That way, when this happens, right, when this scenario happens, this interface, in a way, it remove the PortFast and will go through that process, that span and tree port row state processing. So it essentially become like an interface without the PortFast enable, right? So that this interface could go through the right transition state or row, port row, when it connect to another switch. So PDU filter global configuration, I emphasize on that global configurations, and you see in a second why, right? So so this feature it's kind of handy with PortFast enable interface, that it safeguard the misconfigurations or misconnections on the PortFast enable. So PDU filter has two ways to configure on the switch. You can do the global configurations, which only applies to the port that's configured for PortFast. Now there's the operations, which is the three steps here. That it's a little bit different than the interface configurations. But essentially the difference is that with the global configurations, when it detects PDU message, it will reverse that interface back to the spanner tree operations rather than keep the PortFast enabled, right? But the interface configurations is actually will ignore all incoming PDU, so you hard code this interface to never process a PDU coming in, even if that interface now connecting to a switch. Now doing this could cause the layer 2 loops, right? So for example, if you have a link like this, so it might cause that loops between the switches there. The reason you want to do the global configuration is because it safeguards that. That's this scenario. But if you know that this interface that has PortFast enabled connecting to, for sure, a PC or end devices, then you can do the global configuration of PDU filter. I'm sorry, the interface configuration of PDU filter to, for some absolute that is, will not process PDU because it is only connected to an end device. So the difference there could be a bit confusing, but I would recommend just understand that concept and configure global configurations of PDU filter. Okay, so let's go in the configurations. So I'm at switch 2 again. So let's do the global configurations, right? So if I do spanning tree, PortFast, BPDU, filter, default, okay? So doing this global command will now makes the switch look at all the interfaces that has PortFast enable and enable PDU filter along with it. Okay. So the other way to do it, like I say, is the interface configuration. So you go to individual interface and put all right, so this is the interface configurations. Again, the operation between the interface level and the global level is different. So make sure you understand that, right? Okay, let's move to the next features. We understand that PortFast enable interfaces are just going to connect to end devices like PC, printer, and server, right? So we never want the situation where somebody do this on the PortFast enable interface, right? So PBDU filter features that we learned earlier could, in a way, mitigate, safeguard this as well, right? But some people would want to use bpduguard so that it's not only safeguard this scenario, but is also disable the interface so that you're aware of this situation going on in the network, right? So bpduguard, when enable on PortFast interfaces, it will process bpdu coming into that interface. And the situation here, this switch 2 will detect there is bpdu coming from this switch 6 here. And then what it's going to do is that it will put this interface E01 into an error disabled state. And basically block the interface from doing anything at all. Now you have to go into this interface manually and turn it on and off for this interface to be useful, to be able to use this interface again. So it forces the administrator to identify there is an issue with span and tree on the PortFast enable interface, and it wants the administrator to mitigate that issues before this interface could be turned back on. Okay. So to fix the issues, you have to go back. You have to remove that switch from the enable PortFast enable, and then do a shut and no shut on the interface. So that's how it works, right? It's essentially seem to be a better configurations, better way to safeguard your scenarios with PortFast enable interface and have a switch that accidentally connect to that interface. Okay. Now the key thing here is you can use it's recommended to use either bpduguard with PortFast enable or BPDU filter global configuration mode. Depends on, the scenario and the topologies that you think you wanna run, right, with span and tree. And so, but it is again, if you for sure want this interface or any PortFast enable interface to only connect into end devices and no other switches will ever be connected to that. If there is an accident like this, then you want that interface to be in error disabled state, and then you can go in and manually remove or fix that issues, right? Then you want to go with bpduguard. But if you want to use bpdufilter global mode, which, you don't have to, again, the interface won't be disabled when you use bpdufilter, because you give it a chance to roll back the PortFast configurations and just operate standard tree interface. Then when this scenario happened here, then you can use bpdufilter global mode. Okay. All right. So in our case, let's configure bpduguard in the CLI. So I'm back on switch 2 here. So we look at this interface. Previous was configure PortFast with interface configuration bpdufilter. Again, you don't want to use both bpdufilter and bpduguard because it's redundant, right? So, and it depends on the situation as well. So you want to remove span and tree bpdufilter here first. All right, and then put span and tree bpduguard. There you go. So you can do this with interface configurations as well as global configuration. So this is the interface configurations of E01, right? So the global configurations, when you enable it, it's going to look at all the interfaces on that switch, which already have the PortFast enabled, and then add bpduguard on along with that. And you can do the configurations on the interface level, which again, it's more specific. And the key here is that you can do that regardless if that interface is PortFast or not. So that's the main difference there. Okay. But global mode will also give you save you some time if you want to do that. Okay, so this is the global configuration mode. All right, so that is the difference between BPDU filter and bpduguard. So so do consider these features when you want to use PortFast on your switches. Okay, and PortFast again is the benefit of using PortFast is really good. So you do want to use that in the network topology. All right, I hope the videos has been helpful to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.